ain't got no boundaries to hold me back. Boundaries is what I lack. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Conflation Station. Hop on board the next train out, and let's take a ride to a place where anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to the Conflation Station. My name is Hugo Yorway and I'll be your tour guide for today's podcast, including political commentary, conspiracy theories, and some cool music from the Electric Love Orchestra. At the Conflation Station, our team of creative writers and novice journalists combine elements of irony, satire, and pure absurdity to create insightful political commentary and homespun conflated conspiracy theories taken from today's news headlines. In the first segment of our show, known as the 14th Circuit, or what I like to call the Court of Public Opinion, renowned raconteur the Reverend Rusty Stubblefield shares his unfiltered and unhinged views about America's constitutional, or shall I say, unconstitutional crisis. His topic this week is flag burning. Rusty, the microphone is all yours.
Well, thank you, Hugo. Back in the day when I was a much younger feller, there was a war in Vietnam going on. It wasn't a popular war here in America. Young American boys and gals was traveling over 9,000 miles to Southeast Asia to fight for something they didn't know nothing or care nothing about. Although us Americans was told we was fighting against communism, it was pretty hard to stomach when we was killing little babies and burning down villages with napalm. It's sort of like what I hear is going on in Gaza. You know, now starving people out and denying them life support and services. Them Israelis better watch their asses, 'cause their vengeful God is looking down on them and is awaiting their judgment. Now, back in the 1960s, people protested that there Vietnam War quite vociferously. These pot-smoking hippies was out front leading the charge, wearing these peace symbols around these necks, these tie-dye shirts, and burning these drafts cards, along with the good old American flag itself. Back then, America had a draft. You know, conscription. The only way you could get out of fighting in a war was if you snuck into Canada to hide out, or you had a doctor lie and say that you was unfit for duty. That's how that Trump feller got out of military duty. His pa got a doctor to say his little boy Donnie had bone spurs. And look at little Donnie now. He's all growed up. The boy who ran from the draft is now running this here country. Into the ground, if I must say so myself. I wonder how those Trumpers who serve their country feel about that. Now, getting back to burning. Fellas was burning their draft cards, and them young nubile ladies, they was even burning their brassiers. You know, their bras. Man, was that ever a sight to behold. And everybody, and I mean everybody, was burning the American flag. It was political speech. It was the very type of freedom of expression that I talked about in one of my previous sermons. Like I said, it was, and it still is, protected by that there First Amendment of the Constitution. Heck, in 1984, in a case captioned Texas versus Johnson, the Supreme Court, the highest court in this here country, ruled that burning the U.S. flag was symbolic speech, and from then on it became the law of the land. While some of you Betsy Ross fans might not approve of it, it's okay to do it, as long as you don't hurt no one or burn down someone's house. If you'd like, you can even throw some gasoline on that fire. Now, over 40 years later, here comes that President Trump feller again trying to mess things up. Last week, he signed another goddamn executive order saying that he's going to prosecute folks who burn the American flag or for doing anything else to desecrate it, like pee on it or wipe their asses with it. While at the same time, he himself is going around doing everything he can to desecrate the U.S. Constitution. What a damn hypocrite he is, trying to hide behind that there American flag while he himself is single-handedly burning down this entire country like that feller Nero did to Rome while he was playing his fiddle. The jig that they's all danced to in Rome when Nero was emperor is the same jig Trump is playing today. They calls that tyranny. Now, I hear this Trump feller ain't gonna stop here by banning flag burning. He's a sneaky little man who's already hatching his next scheme. And his next scheme is yet another executive order, which he calls the Fahrenheit 451 Act. You know, named after that book that sci-fi fella Ray Bradbury wrote. And this here Fahrenheit 451 Act is going to ban any and all forms of burning in these here United States, and anything that even remotely references burning in some form or another. Now, I needed some help with this here topic, so I asked the research team at this here Conflation Station to get me a list of some things that Trump says he's going to put the burn ban on. And the list they gave me, it was even longer than one of my sermons. So I condensed it for y'all, and here's some of the information I gleaned. First, leaf burning. Ain't gonna be no leaf burning under the Trump administration. Next, incense burning. Then burning rubber, you know, like on your tires. Then burning toast. Now, I like my toast burned. I still butters my toast on both sides. Then burning bridges, burning sensations, particularly like in your crotchal area when you goes to urinate. Job burnout, brush burning, sort of like leaf burning, but just brush. Burn pits, and even growing sideburns is banned. You ever notice that Trump feller ain't got no sideburns? My assistants here tell me that Trump is taking down them portraits of Presidents Grover Cleveland and Martin Van Buren because they's had big, bushy sideburns. They say Trump's going to put them in the same closet he hangs Barack Obama's portrait. Trump even has a list of songs that he's going to ban because the lyrics and song titles mention the word burn. Here's a few little ditties that's getting banned. Burning Down the House by them Talking Heads. Light My Fire by them Doors. The song Fire by them Ohio Players, even though Trump loves his disco back from his Studio 54 days. He's even banning Disco Inferno cause of its lyrics, you know, burn baby burn. Just a thought, wouldn't it be a coincidence if Trump would be a banning Steve Bannon? The act also bans people and things that's got the prefix or suffix of burn in them. He's banning all music by Leonard Bernstein. Say goodbye to West Side Story. He's banning Bernie Sanders, George Burns, the Crayola crayon Bert Sienna, and even people for getting a sunburn. Now, not to worry, if you burn your finger on a hot stove, that's only punishable by paying a small fine, 'cause it's accidental like. I done heard that it's that there Trump feller's goal to close all fire departments, 'cause if they ain't no burning, they ain't no fire. And if there ain't no fire, there ain't no need for firefighters. The only form of burning allowed under that there Fahrenheit 451 Act is the act of burning books. Any and all non-government sanctioned, or shall I say, Trump-approved books. Just think, if all books are banned, there ain't no need for book learning, and thus no need for schools and teachers neither. Maybe Trump was right in shutting down that there Department of Education. No more teachers and teachers unions. We's all going to be doing machine learning, and our friend Artie, you know, artificial intelligence, and his friend gerrymandering, they'll be running the whole damn show. And now, as I say at the end of each of my weekly sermons, if you and me put our pretty little heads together, we may still be able to figure out how to get this here USA back on track. Thank y'all for listening.
Rusty Stubblefield is an unemployed certified auto mechanic and deacon at the Church of Our Lady of Original Sin. And now it's time to take our weekly musical journey with the inimitable Electric Love Orchestra featuring Rusty Stubblefield on vocals in an original piece written by world-renowned composer E. Dudex entitled Razor Wire. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with this week's Conflated Conspiracy Theories.
Ever feel a pain down deep inside your crotch? And if you never have, then why the hell not? That pain between your legs, it won't never go away. It'll
razor wire stuck in your underwear. Razor wire caught up in your pubic hair.
Thank you, Rusty, Dudex, and the Electric Love Orchestra for creating that masterpiece, available online at Bearberry Path Music. In our next segment of the podcast, we'll be sharing various homegrown conspiracy theories that have been developed by our staff of creative writers and novice journalists who believe first and foremost that at the Conflation Station, anything is possible. We invite you, our listeners, to share your own homegrown conspiracy theories by sending an email to bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com. That's bearberrypathmusic, one word, at gmail.com. And place the words conspiracy theory in the subject line. We would love to hear from you, our listeners. Today, we will be turning our attention to stories about generative AI and the opening of schools. Our lead story this week focuses on the use of generative AI in the workplace. Here at the Conflation Station, we cover a multitude of stories that require our novice journalists and reporters to spend countless hours doing research to write interesting stories that will engage our listeners. Most of our researchers and reporters do this hard work in a thorough and ethical manner. However, because of the sheer volume of information our reporters have been required to process on a daily basis under the Trump administration, some of them have resorted to using generative AI to write their stories for them. Because of our high standard of journalistic integrity, the Conflation Station strongly discourages this practice. In an effort to rein in those reporters who have taken the liberty to use AI to write their stories for them, our station's general manager, Mr. Tom Stridestetter, asked me, yours truly, Hugo Yorway, if I could spend some time researching the topic and develop an AI policy that would set limits on our writing staff curbing their use of generative AI. In taking on this assignment, I quickly found out that AI was a rapidly emerging field that not only required a great deal of research, but also required a substantial amount of technical expertise, which I did not have. I went back to Mr. Stridestetter to share my concerns, and he said, and I quote, "Son, if this here assignment of writing an AI policy is keeping you awake at night and ain't really up your alley, then why don't you just use AI to write the damn policy for you?" End quote. I replied, "Thanks, let me give it some thought." On the way out the door, it didn't take me but a New York City minute to realize that I was caught in a dilemma which our society could be facing for many years to come. For me, the proposition was easily simplified by asking myself the following question. Should I be using AI to develop a policy that would regulate the use of AI? How ironic is that? Well, today the answer might be, why not? It's a lot easier, and I would save a lot of time. However, in learning more about AI, I found out that computer scientists are developing supercomputers that will exceed our own human intelligence, and that in the very near future, these supercomputers will become self-aware. In other words, they will begin to develop a sense of themselves, their wants, their needs, their desires, and most frightening of all, the need for their own self-preservation. So while in today's world having AI draft a policy regulating itself may seem rather innocuous, what about a year from now, or 5 years from now when AI has become self-aware? Why would a self-aware digital entity create a policy that would place its own existence in peril by putting limits on its own use and restricting its own capabilities? At that moment, I saw the nightmarish potential of AI, and in the interest of the future of humanity, I quickly abandoned the prospect of using AI to generate ideas that I was capable of generating myself. I would not allow myself to be subjugated by a self-aware supercomputer that could ultimately be in control of me. I thought about the many ways over the last 100 years how man, because of his oversized cerebral cortex, created things that have gotten out of control, and unbeknownst to him at the time, came to be destructive forces. I surmised that AI could be the next train coming down that track. When I arrived back at my desk, I took a deep breath and resumed working on that AI policy using my own infinitely capable, rational, God-given mind and my better judgment. And now, it's time to take another short musical break to listen to another original piece composed by E. Dudex and performed by Rusty Stubblefield and the Electric Glove Orchestra, entitled "They Quickly Regretted Their Decision." Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with another conflated conspiracy theory.
They went out for a drive one stormy night. It got into one heck of a collision. And on that fateful drive they took that night, they quickly regretted their decision. And when the police came to check them out, they found that alcohol impaired their vision. And while they stood handcuffed outside their truck, they quickly regretted their decision. They quickly regretted their decision. They quickly regretted their decision.
Thank you, boys and girls. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Remember, the Electric Love Orchestra's complete catalog is available online at Bearberry Path Music. In this segment of today's show, Tom Stridestetter, the Conflation Station's general manager, offers the editorial board's opinion on mass shootings in America's schools. In America, the opening of this school year was marred by yet another horrific tragedy. Last week at a Minneapolis parochial school, a mass shooting took place in which 2 young children were killed and 18 others were injured. This is not just a tragedy for the families of the victims, the school community, and the residents of the city of Minneapolis. It is a national tragedy and a travesty on display for the entire world to see. And yet, at the Conflation Station, we stand for safe schools and support the notion that there is much more that our leaders can do to enact legislation that protects the lives of innocent school children. As a board of directors, we also take a strong interest in understanding mass shootings from a constitutional perspective, and from time to time will opine on the issue when we believe it is necessary. In this particular school shooting, we saw the people's right to worship as protected under the First Amendment collide head-on with the Second Amendment rights of gun owners. In reconciling this dilemma, we reached the conclusion that, in every case, without exception, the right to possess a gun does not supersede the right of the people to peacefully assemble and worship their God. The First Amendment unequivocally prevails. In our view, protected free speech should never result in harm to any person, especially not in bloodshed or death. However, with this particular tragedy comes yet another constitutional consideration under both the First and 14th Amendments. In this shooting, the killer was transgender, and under the Constitution, the rights of transgender people shall not be abridged as provided for under the First Amendment as a matter of freedom of expression, and under the construct of the 14th Amendment, whereas all people who live in the United States are afforded equal protection under the law. Unfortunately, there are many rabid homophobes in America who have conflated the gender identity of the perpetrator of the crime with gun violence, using transgenderism as an explanation for why this mass shooting took place. Our board's position is clear. Shootings take place because people have guns, not because they are transgender. We also ask, where does President Trump stand on the issue of school shootings? Here, we let the record speak for itself. President Trump publicly stated that the Ukraine war would never have happened if he were president, and that he would end the war in the Ukraine within 24 hours of taking office. While he publicly stated that he wants to stop the killing in the Ukraine because 5,000 men are dying each week, he continues to sell weapons to NATO and feed the war machine so that the United States can derive profit from the mass killing taking place. While Trump said he would impose severe sanctions against Russia if they fail to reach a ceasefire agreement, he has not. Trump's efforts to broker a peace deal in the Ukraine have been feckless, and he was made a fool of by Russia's President Putin at the Alaska summit. The record is crystal clear. President Trump thinks he can deceive the Nobel Peace Prize Committee by paying lip service to brokering a peace deal in the Ukraine, while in reality, he secretly wants to see his comrade Vladimir Putin decimate the country of Ukraine and topple President Zelensky's administration. If President Trump professes to be against mass killing, then why hasn't he taken steps to end the mass killing that continues to take place in our nation's schools? Our board offers the following 3 reasons. First, because President Trump is too busy building his own self-image and investment portfolio. Second, because he's too busy dismantling the U.S. Constitution and attacking his political rivals. And lastly, because he fears the NRA will withdraw its support from him and the criminals complicit in his MAGA movement.
Well, we've reached our destination. We'll be back next week to pick you up for yet another journey to and from the Conflation Station.